a rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but that beauty, a rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but
Hello to everyone out there listening to this episode of Red Lens. My name is Brad Siegel, and I'm the host of Red Lens, a political photography podcast. I'm really looking forward to this conversation with today's guest. I was trying to remember and couldn't remember when I first met him because it's like he's always there and has always been there in the movement. We've been out in the streets together at who knows how many protests and events, and you always know he's there when you hear, "Listen," in response to the speakers. His consistent support for the movement and his powerful independent journalism has earned him quite an audience and quite a lot of respect. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today for Red Lens about your work documenting and reporting on what's happening in the Twin Cities communities and social justice movements. Welcome to Red Lens Podcast, KingDemetrius Pendleton.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate Red Lens for allowing me to speak on the platform. And like you said, me and you have been in so many different protests. It's just like, we're out here together. We're doing this. This is happening again. So thank you for allowing me to share some of my experience, strength, and hope, if you will.
Absolutely. So why don't we just start with a little bit about you? Tell us who KingDemetrius Pendleton is and what drives you to so tirelessly do what you do.
KingDemetrius Pendleton is a human being, right? A human being that is able to not be what we may call a lot of people may call certain human beings to be they have this stigma basically saying that people are role models, right? I don't want to be considered as a role model. I want to be considered as a real model. A role model never makes mistakes. A real model is an individual that's a human being that will make mistakes. As long as you're alive, you're going to make mistakes, right? So that, for one, I want to be known as a human being. I want to be known also as a man who cherished a higher power, or who I choose to call Allah, God in some sense, if you will. God-fearing individual that believes in prayers, because prayer changes all things. And if it hadn't been for the prayers of people before me, my fathers and my sisters and grandmothers and great-grandmothers, I may not have been here, because I too grew up in a society during the Depression where drugs was out here, abuse was out here, violence was out here. And I grew up in Chicago, Illinois, where there's no filter. Whatever happens, happens. And whatever happens in the house stays in the house, and you better not talk about it. So I just like to thank, just a higher power for me being here. But I'm also a man of integrity, right? Your word is your bond. Whatever you say out your mouth, so all you got is your word, and you don't want to break it for anybody. You want to make sure that you stand on your word. A lot of people give us false hope. They tell us they're going to help us. And next thing you know, we never get helped. And we're like a fish out of water, they're slowly dying. But I just also want to be known for a person of that's loving, kind, a father, to my children, 24/7, no days off, if you will, full-time father, just loving it. I can remember times like when I wasn't so great of a father, if you will, dealing with my horrors of addiction, struggling with drugs, not knowing which way I wanted to go. And my mom had told me when she was sick with cancer that I can do this. And I questioned my mom. I was upset at my mom because my mom had taught me how to hustle. She said, "Son, that was a lie." And I was just so upset because I liked the dysfunctionalness, and a lot of our children like the dysfunctionalness. So when she told me I can change my ways in my life, if I give myself a chance. And that's when I got into Narcotics Anonymous before she passed away. I was able to get sober and stay sober. Now I'm celebrating 14 years and counting. I had some slip ups along the way, but I have 14 years now without any slips or trips or weekend dips. So that's been amazing. And that's why I'm able to do what I do. And I also just want to be known as a person that likes to educate people
Mm.
on what I know. I don't have any problem with helping the individual. The only way we can keep what we have is by giving it away. So I want to give it away because I can't take it to the grave with me.
Wow, yeah, that's inspiring, and congratulations on that 14 years. I know that's one day at a time. That's not easy.
Yes.
So, who are some people that have inspired you to choose the path you're on now to be a photographer and an independent journalist, especially as a Black man in a field that historically and even now is predominantly white?
Wow. I mean, that's like a lot of us would say it's a no-brainer answer. Of course, Gordon Parks, a self-taught photographer, and to see how he came in this arena during the 60s, what have they, and being able to get a contract and be able to work for Time Life magazine was totally amazing. This was never heard of a Black man during the 60s, if you will, working for a high-end magazine. And he was a self-taught photographer.
And that was before there was YouTube, where you could go on like, how do you do this? How do you do the settings on your camera? He had to figure that out without YouTube.
Exactly. And to just give you a tad bit of Gordon Parks when you get a chance, just check out his piece where it's called Half Past Autumn. And it's a local movie director that's right here in Minnesota his name is Craig Rice. And what he did, he the one put that piece together with the help of one of my favorite actors in the world, and Denzel Washington helped him put it together, gave him a large amount of money, had him to put it together. But one thing that struck me about Gordon Parks when he was talking about his situation, he said like when his mom had died, they had several children, around 13 children. He was the last one. His mom wanted him to come to St. Paul. And he said when he was born dead. And the physician had an assistant by the name of Gordon, was his assistant. And his assistant said, hey, ask one of his sisters to grab a chunk of ice and bring it over there and set the baby on the ice and set Gordon Parks on the ice. And he's been hollering ever since. So that's an amazing piece, you know what I'm saying? He has been hollering ever since. So, Gordon Parks, also like James Van De Zee, also like Carrie Mae Wimmers, just like Robert Capret. He was a good photographer as well. Margaret White, you know what I'm saying? Margaret was a hell of a photographer doing, this is some photographers doing like the war and stuff like that, and how they were able to go out there and capture what was going on during the war deal. And, it's just so many amazing photographers that you can, piggyback some of your work off of. So yeah, it's a lot of them. It's a lot of them.
And Gordon Parks is from right here in St. Paul. Isn't that right?
Yes, he had started stardom right here in St. Paul, and he was shooting photography. And he started off basically like on the street. So what wound up happening, he brought his camera from the pawn shop for $8. Then he went on a shooting spree, and he happened to come up at a designer store right here in St. Paul, to where they had exclusive gowns and clothes. And one of the guy who was the owner, and him and his wife was running it, owned it. And Gordon Parks came into the door and was asking, man, can I take a picture of, saying some of your models? And he said, hey, ain't no color people allowed, whatever. And his wife said, leave him alone. Let the man take a picture. So on that day, Gordon Parks, he told him to come back after 5, 6 o'clock. He came back after the store closed, went to the back, took a roll of film, took a whole, shot a whole roll, went over to his friend's house, and he overexposed the photos. He only had one. He only had one picture, and he had his friend to blow it up and put it on the easel when he went back to the place. And he showed the lady, and she said, "Oh, this is a beautiful, beautiful piece." She said, "Where's the rest of them at?" He said, "I overexposed." And from that point on, she said, "Okay, now you come back again the next day, and this time no overexposing." And that's where he got to start him. And not only that, he got to start him from the boxer. They call him the Brown Bomber, Joe Louis. Joe Louis' wife also asked Gordon Parks to come to Chicago and photograph them. And then from there, he started networking with the Honorable Malcolm X and, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and all that. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was going to give him $500,000 to work for them and to write for them. But Gordon Parks knew, that money was too great, and he knew that he would own him then. So he decided that he wouldn't take the money and he would just keep doing what he do. And he's just amazing the way he wrote. And a lot of people don't know Gordon Parks was a composer, a writer. He did plays. He also did The Learning Tree. He did so much work other than just photography. He played basketball. The man was a jack of all trades, you know what I'm saying? He was amazing on all levels. So definitely.
Wow. I would love to have you back on sometime to just do an episode in depth about Gordon Parks. Because I'd love to learn more.
Yes.
But yeah, why don't we get back to your photography, and when did you first pick up a camera, and tell us how you got interested in photography, what your journey has been with photography?
Yes, I literally picked up a camera who I would say like in the 1990s, like in the was in the 90s, but it wasn't to document anything. It was just to take photos and, school stuff. And we was just playing around and just laughing at each other, acting goofy with the camera, what have they.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't know how serious it was. And I really got intrigued by it because you can actually play back what happened. Nobody can deny it. Nobody can deny the pictures. So yeah, that's what intrigued me to get into photography, basically.
And then you actually got a degree in photography and digital imaging, right, at MCTC. A lot of people, I was talking before about YouTube. A lot of people just go on YouTube and learn how to take pictures that way, but you actually studied the craft and got a degree. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, studying a degree to get a degree in photography is totally blindsiding, if you will. And what I mean that, like, when you go in there, you just thinking like, yeah, I'm just gonna take a picture and we're done. No, it's studying, it's levels to it, it's learning the aperture, learning your ISO, knowing your lighting, knowing how to take the noise out of a photo, learning how to work with the chemicals when you're in the dark room. All this is very important. And knowing how to set your settings when you're photographing is very important. A lot of people will get the camera and they will pick the camera up for a little while, but after that, they figure out the camera doesn't pay any money, so they put it down and go to doing whatever else. Mm-hmm. But photography is a patient skill, if you will. You have to be real patient, and not only that, you have to have alligator skin to be in this game.
What do you mean by that?
Because, you got some people like will criticize your work. Your photos might not be sharper than other people's photos, and other people may be popular than you, and you have to be able to control that. And don't worry about that narrative. Make your own narrative. Make a way out of no way. Continue to keep on showing up and go from there, because literally I've been on the ground for 10 years. And I'm just starting to get an inkling of recognition. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so true, especially with social media these days. It's impossible not to compare always, oh, those people's photos are so great. How do they do that? But I really agree that you need to, as much as possible, ignore all that noise and just follow your journey, because everybody is somewhere on the journey. And the only thing you can prepare yourself to is what you did yesterday and what you're going to do today.
That part.
Yeah. So you created Listen Media. And I assume taking its name from your now famous call and response, when people make a good point at the protests. So what is Listen Media? When did it start? Who's involved? What do y'all do?
Okay, Listen Media is a grassroots organization that's been rooted since 2000, and I would say 16 or 17, around 2017. So I wanted Listen Media to be able to give voices to the voiceless, and it kind of like started off like no one was ever listening, and they don't listen to the people who have really no voice, because a lot of us, just to be clear with you, we want what happens in the house stays in the house. A lot of people have that still stuck home syndrome, to where they're not going to talk about what happened to them. So a lot of times they feel their voice is not important, so they don't say anything. So Listen Media want to reassure people like, hey, if something happened to you, is very abysmally. We want to be able to help. Not only we want to be able to help, we want to be able to give you a voice. You know what I'm saying? The voice that you've been having, the voice that you thought you never had. And so what's going on? Listen Media is under construction because it's hard to get help and people to really show up, right? Because I know like a couple of people are on board. My administrative manager, AJ Bentley, also my brother Phil Ward, Phil the Real Deal, and it's myself, like literally trying to get other people to come on board, because people have their own personal things that they have to do in life. So I'm just constantly just kind of like build and making sure that I have people that's going to really show up. That's the main thing, to show up. The rest of the stuff is going to fall in your lap. All you got to do is show up. The ones who get it is the ones who show up. But Listen just came from like when my daughter got killed in 2013 by a drunk driver. It took them 6 months before they even said her name, along with a young man named who got killed. And I felt that was very preposterous, the guy who killed him. And when his name finally came out, he went to court, and next thing you know, he get out with no bond, killing two people. And he was a Caucasian man, drunk, under the influence, going 120 miles per hour. November the 3rd, 2013 was not a rainy day, was not a snowy day. The roads, the conditions was clear. He was drunk, and his privilege allowed him to walk out the jail free, turn himself in, stay out for like 6 months, turn himself in, and walk right back out the courtroom. And I said, this is totally preposterous, and I got to do something about this. And I knew like a part of my family, they was going through their own stuff, because two things happen when a person get killed. Is either a person get terrible in life, really abysmally bad, or as a person do something to change it in life. So I wanted it to be that change. And that change started off with listening. So I had to listen to my true self and not my habit self. My habit self would have had me to go run and get some dope and never see nobody. But my true self said, hey, you can do something with this. You can pray on it and not worry about it, and just let a higher power lead you to, to where you want to be. And that's exactly where Listen Media came from. Just like, I want people to listen to the voiceless of the voices of the people.
Wow, that's powerful. And, I had a similar experience of losing a loved one to a drunk driver. So I can't know what your experience was, but I know that's a very difficult experience in life. And I agree. You have to take that and, do what you can to have some positive outcome and try and change the injustices. That's what I've done too in my life, or tried to do.
Yes, definitely.
So yeah, you recently put out a powerful book of your movement photography, and it's called The Movement Never Stops. And I think that's a very fitting title, since you're really tireless. You're always moving. You're always there at just about every protest, every event, what have you. And I have to say, the book is beautiful. It's very high quality, well put together. And I think it's a great testament to the blood, sweat, and tears that really thousands of people have poured into the streets fighting for justice here in Minnesota since the police murdered George Floyd in 2020. And And I know you have some stuff in the book from before that, but a lot of it, documents these last few years that have been very intense. So can you tell us a little bit about the book? What photos are in it? How did it come together? And was it hard to put together a book?
Oh yes, I could definitely tell you about that book. Oh my goodness. So the movement never stops stems from, like you indicated, like me always being boots on the ground. And despite the fact of what happened to anybody in the movement will constantly move, okay, with our permission or without our permission. So I wanted to gather up some images, and I wanted to go all the way back far as Jamar Clark. Like Jamar Clark happened in 2014 to 15-ish.
Mhm.
Like around the same time of my daughter being killed by the drunk driver. And I wanted to make sure that I was there and able to stream what was going on and record what was going on. And my photography skills was really on the shaky ground. I just had a camera just to have a camera. I always showed up just to show up. And in life, in order to be successful, we must know these rules. Especially when you want to be successful, it goes that whenever you're early, you're on time. Whenever you're on time, you're late. And when you're late, you're fired. So with
Mm.
that being said, I'm always showing up a half an hour to like an hour early to comb out the situation and that, police do, they gotta comb the scene to see who's all out there, right? And then from there, I'm always the last one to leave, right? I want to be the last one to leave because there's no telling what's going to happen at the end, right? And a lot of things does happen at the end, and people don't see it because they left already, right?
Mm.
And it's just like just seeing a woman, just saying, okay, my wife is in labor. Okay, cool. All right, I'm going downstairs to get coffee. You come back and the baby is there. You're like, oh my God.
Oh.
So what I'm saying, you always gotta wait it out, right? So the movement never stops, it never stops. And not only that, we must understand that we're standing on the shoulders of very powerful people who came before us: Dr. Maya Angelou, Malcolm X, James Baldwin, the Honorable Martin Luther King Jr., et cetera, et cetera. You know what I'm saying? The list can go on and on. These are the people whose shoulders that we're standing on. And, we want to make sure that we do the best that we can do. You know what I'm saying? A lot of time we have a lot of lost time that we're trying to make up for, right? And what I mean by that, a lot of time we didn't messed up 15, 20 years of our life not listening. That's why I say listen. So
Mm.
I messed up some years of my life by not listening, right? I
Okay.
said, oh, if I listen, maybe I will get something accomplished. So I had to listen with a critical ear. And with that being said, it has changed my life tremendously. I did a paradigm shift, and I never, or should I say, I couldn't fathom me being at the point that I am now. And I'm just so grateful for people in the community and people all over the world showing me respect, showing me their gratitude. And it's amazing. But guess what? You can't take none of this with you. So I'm willing to give it back to the community because that's what it's about. When we're make it to the top, what I'm saying, we must not forget to press the button on the elevator so it can go back down and get the other people. A lot
Mm.
of people forget that, so I'm not that person. I'm always pressing the button so it can go back down and get other people. So yeah, that part.
So you have to have taken just many thousands of photos in the last few years at protests and events. How did you decide what to include in the book? And there was an exhibit too, right? So you had to narrow it down probably even more for the photos in the exhibit. Like, how do you decide that?
And that process was painstakingly difficult because this was during the month of Ramadan in April of 2022. And I was fasting, and I was like, hey, I want to do something. So fasting is no eating sun up, sundown, no sex activities until the nighttime, if you will. And whenever you start fasting, your first 3 days is the hardest days because You're going to drive past your favorite restaurant, your coffee you used to drink, whatever the case may be, right? And not only that, when you're fasting, you want to be able to change the narrative. You want to be able to change some of the things that you used to do, right? Say, for instance, you might have cursed so much. You don't want to curse like you used to that much. Say, for instance, if you want to shed off a couple of pounds, right? So, of course, when you're fasting, you will shed a couple of pounds. But then and again, if you overeat, you will gain weight during fasting. You only can eat like so many days. I mean, so many hours out of that day. Say, for instance, you're fasting for 19 hours. You only got like what 6 hours more to, you know what I'm saying, 6 to 5 hours more to do whatever you got to do. And you say to yourself, man, this is hard, because you're gonna have to sleep. And once you sleep, you get up, you know what I'm saying? You got to make your breakfast, and making your breakfast, all this stuff, all that's a part of fasting. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to challenge myself, right, to do something different, because not only that, I was sick with COVID and I almost died. And I said, hey, I got to get busy living or get busy dying. So I said, I need to put this book together. I have all these images, and picking these images was very difficult, because I went through 1,000 images, right? Then I went to like 500 images. Then I went to like, it was going down. So I got 150 images in there, but that's just let you know how problematic where we're standing at in this world is. Like, to have these images and to have a not just a story, but these are actual human beings who has been impacted. How during an era when Trump was in office, how he was saying immigrants is not welcome here. How people was was shooken up abysmally. I can remember when I was in college, when Trump won, the whole school, it's like some people stopped going to school because some people was immigrants and they couldn't come back to school because he had already put out like, I'm going to get this person, I'm going to build a wall and this and that, I'm going to lock them up. People was afraid, right?
Yeah.
So people were crying and everything. But I'm telling you, one of my English teachers, she wrote a letter, an open letter to everyone, basically saying that, hey, we're gonna be all right. But the way she worded it was so amazing, to give a person hope and saying she's staying with them in solidarity. And I'm just so grateful that I still have a relationship with some of my professors at the college. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna give you one thing before I finish that topic, is because my professor told me, like, when I was shooting my photos, I was upset, right? I had doubted myself. That's what he told you. You got to have tough still. And that's the thing about going to school. They'll tell you some stuff that you will listen with a critical ear, that'll stick to you. So you got to have tough skin to be in here. So I had took some pictures, and my pictures didn't look like the other people's pictures. So I'm judging my pictures off their pictures, right? So I told my teacher, I said, you know what? I ain't been to school in 28 years, and I'd never been to college, and I don't think this is a good thing, man. He sat me down and he said, look, he said, who's your favorite child? I told him Gordon Parks. He said, look at Gordon Parks' work and look at your work. Do you see any difference? I said, no. He said, so what are you gonna quit for? If you're not gonna do it, who gonna do it? So right then and there, that gave me the confidence to keep on going to school, because trust me, when you're in school, life still happens with your children, with your wife, with your significant other. Divorces happen, breakups happen. People will start dying on you. Everything happened. Anything that you can imagine bad can happen is gonna happen when you're in school. But the main thing, don't drop out of school. You know what I'm saying? So that was one of the big parts for me. Yeah.
So, having just gone through all of the work you've done over the last several years, like, what's some of the work that you've done or the things that you've covered in the past few years that stand out to you as the most memorable or impactful? Like, what's some of your work that you're the most proud of?
Ooh, and I'm proud of mostly all my work, because again, like I said, I'm a recovering addict. I had struggled abysmally of trying to figure out my identity and who I was, right? And by me, getting myself together, in progress, showcased my work on the screen. and I was basically fibroblastic over there. I was like, oh my goodness, this is improv. I was like, because I never had been on a screen. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then also Hennepin Theater Trust had put some of my work up when we was with Move for Justice News. And the images and just like, wow, this is really happening. And then when I had got the Unsung Heroes Award, and then I got another award from Racial Justice Network for moving photography. Then I got another award, and these awards was coming like wow, and I just couldn't believe like the love that I was getting, and I was like, oh, thank you, thank you, God, you know what I'm saying, and it became really, what I'm saying, hard work because a lot of times you're out here doing the work. You don't think nobody paying attention to your work, right? Is
Right.
people be looking at your images and never say nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You be like, that only got one like. What the hell? You know what I'm saying? But you got to remember, you get to be like Nas, the rapper. All I need is one like. You know what I'm saying? One like.
Yeah.
It's all you need. So a lot of times when I'm putting stuff up, I'm not thinking that I'm gonna get the response that I get, but it's welcoming to get the response that I'm getting. But hey, if dollars can come with that, that would be awesome. I'll be able to build my own pieces. But dollars don't come with likes. So we got to take what we can get when we can get it and how we can get it and work with it to the best of our ability.
So you have put in that work over these last, I don't know how many years, like you said, boots on the ground, day in, day out. A lot of times you post stuff and nobody likes it, or like you said, one like, and it can be discouraging, but then you have gotten some of those accolades and awards and recognitions too. And that's really important. But a lot of independent journalists and even some of the big corporate journalists have also been targeted during the protests around George Floyd, for example, and there have been lawsuits about it. Have you been targeted or experienced harassment or brutality while documenting protests, just as a journalist in general, and especially as a Black journalist?
Oh, definitely, yes. And like literally, when I first started the journalist thing, man, I thought about like how I used to be out here in the street chasing drugs. That's how I had to chase my journalism, right? I had to make sure I had to put my boots on the ground and not be afraid, because if anything, I'd rather for somebody to hurt me while I'm doing my journalism work to being hurt doing a transaction, doing some drugs or some stuff like that. So that's how I took it. And not only that, I had been racially profiled abysmally a lot of times. I mean, whenever not just by white people, by Black people as well, because when they see you with a camera, you're automatically a threat. Hey, don't take my picture. That's oh my god, that's the worst. Like literally, everybody's out here in the world is on camera. When you come outside, you're on camera. And it's just people just like, they make a big fuss over something that's not even, you don't even have to fuss about it. But people gonna be who they are either way it goes. So you have an obligation to attain and do what you do. And by me having my credentials, that made it also worthwhile. I can get in some places that I never thought I could be able to get into, all because I have my credentials, my press pass. And I put in the work, you know what I'm saying? And it's it is what it is, independently. And memorable moments, especially when I covered the Derek Chauvin trial doing George Floyd, and watching
And you
attorney.
were actually in the courtroom, right? You were one of the very few journalists who got in there.
Exactly. And myself with Move for Justice News at the time, spearheaded with myself, Phil Ward, what I'm saying, and other individuals. I put it in Phil's ear. I said, hey, man, we should sign up for that. And I just put it in his ear and he filled out whatever. And that's they gave it to us. He's like, Ken, you're not going to believe this, man. And I was like, what? He's like, they letting us in. I was like, no way. So Phil's like, you got to go in that courtroom. I said, man, I'm not going in the court. I don't know what to do in the courtroom. So I gave it some thought, and then I decided to go in the courtroom because I always watched it. Perry Mason, Johnny Cochran, Attorney Thurgood Marshall. These were some of my icons, if you will, when it came to law. And I've always loved the law. Law is very fickle, it's very perplexing. You never know the outcome. You can think it's going to be a slam dunk case, but then and again, it can turn around expeditiously. So, and it's fickle, and just like journalism, it's fickle. Someone's always trying to challenge or talk about your skill set or what have they. I don't have all the right answers. I don't have all the wrong answers. I just have some answers.
Yeah, that's the best you can do. So one thing I wanted to mention and get your thoughts on, I noticed that recently you mentioned before the Hennepin Theater Trust, which, we did some work with when we were doing Move for Justice News. Your portrait was recently included in their For the People portrait series, which means your portrait is really big on a wall downtown somewhere now in Minneapolis. So yeah, tell us about that. How did you get in that situation, and how did you choose how to pose? Tell us about the picture.
Oh my goodness. And that was very unexpected. My buddy Phil Ward reached out to me and said, "Hey man, Henry Trust want to talk to you about something, this and that, right?" So and they contacted me like in April when I was fasting the month of Ramadan, really when I was doing my book, right? I didn't think nothing of it, really, to tell you the truth, right? So I just kind of blew it off, whatever. And they said, "Yeah, got this photographer who's gonna take a picture of you, this and this and that." I was like, "Okay, whatever." So the photographer did a heck of a job too, and he got it in. I really appreciate that, brother. He did a good job. But what happened was, he sent me a picture and told me he wanted me to pose sort of like a Black Panther deal. And he sent me a picture of Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan was sitting on the GQ magazine, sitting there just looking, and he had like his all black on, and he was sitting down, right? I wanted to do something different. So we went to 38th in Chicago, George Floyd Square, with the photographer guy, and we just did a couple of shots, right? Just a couple of shots. And upon doing those shots, I noticed something that was really stand out, that would really get people's attention. So I said, "Hey, let's do a photo right here with me standing on the fence and holding my fist up, right?" So, all right, okay. So I did it. I did the shot. And here, lo and behold, that was the image that they picked out of all the images that he asked me to do a pose of. That was the most powerful image, because the reason why I chose that pose as well, and I wanted to have my hand in front of my face. I really didn't want people to really figure out who I was. It didn't make a difference either way it go. But I wanted to have my hand in front of my face, and I wanted to have my fists up, and that represented Carl Lewis and Jesse Owens during the 60s, when Hitler wouldn't shake their hand. They was the fastest track star there was. And he didn't want to give them their respect, saying this is what goes on to this day. As you can see, some of the Disney cartoon characters are not shaking the kid's hand. It's hurting them abysmally. And you can see like the guy, the Pope wouldn't shake his hand. The Pope went around. And, this is nothing new. So I just want to let people know we stand in solidarity with Colin Kaepernick and all the people who kneeled before Colin Kaepernick, if you will. And, and just let them know, the movement never stopped. And also, I want to be clear, like, there has not been much change, so yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing I wanted to ask you about too is when you're taking photos and doing journalism out at the protests and stuff, a lot of times you're wearing like protective gear. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, people in other cities may not be like that, but it's almost like when we go out to cover protests, especially during times that can be tense, it's almost like you're a war photographer, like, can you talk about some of what you wear to protect yourself?
I can just imagine what Robert Capper went through, documenting the wars that he covered, and wearing gear. Not only that, you have your camera gear wrapped around your neck, you also got to add a extra 15 to 20 pounds dealing with the bulletproof vest, a helmet, et cetera, right? So it's like you're always targeted because you are the individual with the camera. and the person with the camera gets the shot. And once the person with the camera gets the shot, he get to put it all out there. Once he put it out there, the media is going to eat it up, right? So people want to destroy the evidence. People will do all types of tomfoolery stuff when there's no camera that's recording them. But now, since we have cameras, we have cameras 24/7. Everybody got their iPhone, whatever. And it's like now people have to think. And some people, they don't care if they're on camera. They're gonna do this gut wrenching, egregious act anyway. So you're always targeted once you got a camera around your neck. And wearing the gear is a protective device that hopefully not only what's going on, you just hope and pray that you make it home to your loved ones. You know what I'm saying? That's our main thing, you know what I'm saying? And you can put this together like if a firefighter or a peace officer and all that, they just want to make it back home to their family, EMT worker, et cetera, because not only when we're on front line, boots on the ground, we deal with people with mental illness issues and people who have chemical dependency issues. And you never know if people have, you know what I'm saying, HIV, COVID, you know what I'm saying, whatever. And, you know, it's some cruel people out here and they'll give you some of their pain. So you have to handle people with care and cautious. Because if you don't, ain't no telling when they're going to be the ticking time bomb, if you will. So it's good to protect yourself at all times.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what about, do you do other kinds of photography besides movement photography? Do you like doing portraits or doing, other kinds of photography?
Yes, I love doing portrait photographers. I love doing different stills. I love taking photos at the night, having exposure for long to get the glare and different shadows in the background. You know, it's just different. And it's so much you can do with the camera, right? It's so much you can do with a camera. And not only that, being in Lightroom and Photoshop, they have different options that you can, you know, saying, turn a person eyes this color. You can add a person into the photo. You can, you know, eliminate a person from the photo. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can. You can.
So the camera is beginning to be very, very tricky, but it's amazing that with this new technology that we have, it's amazing because like back during the Gordon Parks and the Robert Caprio and the Margaret White days, you know what I'm saying, they used to have to wait probably 2 days for their grits. But right now, as we sit, we only have to wait 3 minutes for our grits, you know, so we want instant gratification. So with that being said, you know, we are more fortunate than others.
For sure. For sure. So a lot of people get real interested in what kind of camera people use, what kind of camera gear, so we can't let those people down. We got to talk about that a little bit. So what kind of camera do you use and what lenses do you use? Like when you're photographing at a protest, for example?
Oh, I use an A66 Sony camera, 6600 Sony camera, and that seems to work for me. And I also have various lens, 70 to 200. Also have a wide fisheye lens that catches the whole crowd, and it's 2.8. Then I also have a fixed lens as well. That's pretty sufficient. And these lenses can cost anywhere from 3,000 and up. That's one of the deals. Whenever you start getting into photography, you got to know it's kind of like breaking the piggy bank, if you will. You know,
it's an expensive habit for sure.
it's like having an old school car. You know what I'm saying? Everybody wants to put something different on their car, et cetera, et cetera. So it's no different, but you kind of like get what you pay for. But then and again, you work with what you got until you can get what you want to get. Yep. And that's a lot of things, you know, and not only that, hopefully you're going to work around some people that see your worth and they will give you an expensive camera. And not only that, you know what I'm saying, if they'll give you a discount on a camera that they may have been using, they upgrade it and they give you their camera. So yeah, you stick around long enough, you'll be okay. In order to be a photographer, really to be a photographer, you have to put it over, I would say, let me see, 10,000 hours, right? And then them 10,000 hours full time for 5 years, that would equal up to your 10,000 hours, but he had to put in 8 hours a day. And you know what I'm saying, no vacation, none of that. You got to put them hours in. And a lot of times we do know that whenever individuals touch the camera, sometimes they touch it for 3 months, 6 months, a year, and then they put it down and they never get to that 5 year mark. Once you get to that 5 year mark, people are going to start noticing the type of work that you do. You know what I'm saying? You can't be refused, you know. So, yeah, so it's best to, you know, if you want photography to be your hobby, just stick with it. You're bound to get it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that a lot of people try and get into photography and they try it for a year, 2 years and get frustrated that things aren't moving fast enough. And then they quit just before they're about to hit their stride, you know, or what they're about to break out. A lot of people just give it up a little bit before they should have just kept going, you know. It's hard. So you like the Sony cameras and you like working with those. Did you do, you said you did some work in the dark room when you were in college. Like, so you took some film photography pictures too?
Yes. Oh my goodness. You know, the thing about I have so many film photos that I haven't, you know, I develop all of them. I have my what you may call my practice sheet, if you will. And the sheets, like my negative sheet, it shows like the images that's on there. And I have so much history doing my starting in the dark room, because that's where I started at. And as weird as I don't know what, I was shooting with a black and white camera when I first started coming out protesting. And literally, and I can just imagine like being in the dark room, because like when you get spoiled to just shooting digital images, you don't want to go to the dark room, because the dark room is a patient skill. You have to have patience to go in there. You got to make sure your water temperature is right. You got to make sure that you're going to, when you go in the dark room, that you don't get no light.
Right, right.
You don't want no light to come in, because the
Just
light
just
come in.
that red light. You can have a certain red light, but
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
else. Nothing else.
You're done. So in you know, when you're developing film, it's a process. And then when it comes out, you'd be so fibroblastic by it. You'd be like, wow, I shot this image. And
Mhm.
then not only that, to learn how to take the grid out, know how to take the noise out, to learn how to dodge exposure, learning how to put it on 15, 16 seconds, 18 seconds, you know what I'm saying, 24 seconds, depending on how you want your image to look. And it's very time consuming. I used to go in the dark room during the daylight and come out when it's nighttime. That's how
Mhm.
addicting it is. It's addicting, you know what I'm saying? But it is a patient job, if you will.
Yeah, it takes so much time and yeah, and it's expensive too, you know, because yeah, you have to
Very.
buy all the paper and everything, but and the chemicals. But yeah, everything that we do now in Photoshop and Lightroom, if you know how to work in the dark room, those things make more sense because you're doing the same things, just pressing buttons instead of, like you said, exposing it for 16 seconds instead of 10 seconds, or dodging this part or burning that part.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So what's next for KingDemetrius Pendleton? Any upcoming projects you haven't announced yet you want to share with our listeners today, or what's coming up?
I just want everybody to stay tuned. I'm working on just basically building listen media, making sure I'm having the right people that's around me, the right people who wants to work with me, and we work with each other, because at Listen Media, there is no bosses. We're all working together. If I can't, you know what I'm saying, I can't, you know, we can. And I have that analysis, because I want people to know that, hey, I'm human just like you. I'm no better than you, but you're no better than me. We are the same. So we can all bring something to the not the table, because we want the structure. We want the oasis. We want the whole building. We want the, you know, that's what we want. The table don't exist if there is no structure. We want the structure. We want our stuff to be built with rebar and steel and we want our building to be built right. So when the first tornado or whatever happened, we'll still be standing, because we know in all types of organizations, and sometimes people get a weather hits them, and then if they weren't built right, they're gonna blow away. And this is a lot of people that's in the movement, like, they blow away because they didn't come on right premises. They came on false fallacies, and basically they was being imposters, if you will, lying on dead people's name. And you can never succeed by doing that. So yeah, so Listen Media want to make sure that we are doing what we do, and we want to make sure that we give back to the community, and we want to make sure that we don't want to be the first person to be there on the scene of the story, but we just want to make sure when we do put out information, we want to put it out correctly, and we want to make sure that the family is able to speak power to truth, that part.
Powerful, powerful. Is there anything else you want to touch on that we didn't get to talk about yet?
No, I just like to thank you for having me. You have been an inspiration as well, with me coming out there and seeing you at every protest. Brad, you are a good, powerful, and amazing photographer. Your work speaks for itself. And I just want to let you know you're doing a powerful job. You are making history as well. And you're there for not only African American people, you're there for a rainbow coalition of people, and it's amazing to always see you document as well. And I wish your podcast success, and anything I can help to make sure that's possible, please let Listen Media know.
I really appreciate that, and I feel the same way. You're always my inspiration, because I just try and keep up with you, and sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't. But yeah, it's just great to be in the movement with you in the struggle. So why don't you let folks know where people can find you and find your work online, and how can people get your book and support your work?
Yes, people can find me online I have two main pages that I do. My one page is KingDemetrius Pendleton, one name, KingDemetrius, KingDemetrius, last name Pendleton, Pendleton. My other page would be Listen Media USA. Listen Media USA is like my other page that I live stream from. I just piggyback off of both of those pages. And what happened is, like, since I'm so popular, Facebook blocks a lot of my stuff. It'd be amazing. They let kids go on here and do all types of tomfoolery stuff. But since I'm doing something positive, they make sure they block me at all costs, if you will. But yes, and also with my book, you can contact my administrative manager, and her name is AJ Bentley. And what she does, she makes sure all and everything that I need is taken care of when it comes to my emails, et cetera, et cetera. And you can actually call her. Her number is 651-285-2701. Again, 651-285-2701. And she will give you guys the information. Also, you can go to kdplistenmedia.org for my Gmail, and leave any type of message or anything you like to know about what I'm doing, and how I'm putting some things together, and how we can help get your story out. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks one more time for taking this time to talk, and it's been wonderful to talk to you in depth, sitting and relaxed, and not just out on the street being chased by the police, or being trying to get
supremacists.
All right, thanks so much.
Thanks a lot. Have a blessed day. God bless.
A rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but that beauty a rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but
You can support Red Lens Podcast by supporting my Patreon. Go to patreon.com/SiegelPhotos, SIGAL PHOTOS, and sign up for a small monthly donation. That will go a long way in helping sustain the podcast and my work as a political photographer. Thank you for checking out and supporting Red Lens Podcast.